G'day ladies and gents, welcome to War Thunder with Mags and welcome aboard the F-84 Thunderjet. Now the F-84 Thunderjet is an aircraft that's had a few adjustments recently. First things first, it had a few changes to its flight model, increasing its overall performance. It's also been granted an air spawn on pretty much all maps. This was due to some of the maps that it spawns in on. It, in stock format, having some difficulty getting off the ground. Although I never had a problem getting it up myself, it did require deployment of takeoff flaps at the right moment, at the right speed, and a bit of braking before takeoff in order to get it off the ground. It's also had a change in where it sits in War Thunder's meta. This plane used to be one of several 6.7 aircraft that the US had access to in terms of jets, the other two being the P-80 and the F-80C. However, recent BR changes have made the F-84 Thunderjet now the only 6.7 jet fighter available to the United States. And with its changes in performance and its air spawn, it's actually become very competitive very quickly. Now, in stock format, this plane is still a little bit of a dog. It's not as bad as some planes I've encountered, but it is one of those aircraft where a substantial amount of its performance is actually tied into its upgrades. So when you first unlock it, it may feel a little underwhelming. However, when it's fully upgraded in terms of performance models, or rather performance upgrades, it is an exceptional aircraft. Now this F-84 Thunderjet is mostly spaded. I'm missing basically my ground attack pylons. I generally don't put ordnance on my jets, I like to fly them as fighters, so it's not something that I've rushed into, although this plane is very close to being done. Now if you watch my last 262 video, this battle is basically the reverse of that. I had an exceptionally good US team, I'm fighting against Germany in the F-84 Thunderjet, and I'm engaging 262s as well as 190s. Now you'll see that I'm trying to keep airspeed, I'm going wide, keeping altitude and diving back through. The Thunderjet is actually incredibly fast. Now, it is actually faster than the 262. In the case of this battle, the Thunderjet is the fastest aircraft on this battlefield, but only just. Target fixated D-13, engaging other props, never saw me coming, strike from behind, he's out of battlefield, boom out the other direction at over 900, and clear for altitude. And that's my first kill of the match. Now as I was saying, the Thunderjet is the fastest aircraft on this battlefield, but only just. Its speed from 0 to 700 kilometers an hour, it'll out-accelerate the 262 with no problems whatsoever. However, between 700 and 800, the 262 will actually accelerate quicker. However, the 262 will pull up at about 820 kilometers an hour in level flight at maximum. The Thunderjet, however, can push out 950 if you leave it in level flight for long enough when it's fully upgraded. In terms of maneuverability, the 262 and the Thunderjet almost have the same amount. The 262 is slightly more maneuverable, however the Thunderjet has a slightly higher climb rate. The 262 has slightly higher energy retention. These two planes are actually very well matched against one another, with the only difference being the armament. The 262 U4, having a 50mm cannon designed for ground attack or anti-bomber operations, is not particularly good at dealing with fighters. The Thunderjet, on the other hand, with 650 caliber machine guns, dealing with enemy aircraft is exactly what this thing is good at in War Thunder. Just try Spike at the Tempest. I didn't actually hit him then, it was our premium Tempest that got that shot on. So, go back for altitude, there is a 262 coming in from behind, and I'm going to move to engage. Now the positioning of the guns on the Thunderjet is actually quite interesting. 4 of the 50 calibers this aircraft is armed with are mounted directly on the nose on top of the engine cowling, or the intake cowling. The other 2 are mounted in the wing roots, slightly off-center to the axes and center axes of the aircraft. So what you get is 4 guns that are incredibly accurate, and as you can see here firing, 2 guns that will fire slightly wide at all times. 262 goes into the vertical, I move to follow. Now the 262, being twin-engined, actually has better energy retention in this kind of a manoeuvre. However, I went into this manoeuvre with more speed as I came straight out of a dive. This meant that I could actually keep distance on him, and you can see he is actually accelerating away from me at the moment, and I'm unable to catch him. He's extending out to 800 meters, he'll push out towards a kilometer, and this is going to become a drag race in terms of speed. At over 700 kilometers an hour, the 262, as you can see, will accelerate faster, but as I start increasing through the 700 kilometer an hour range, I will begin to drag him back. Now the German team has taken a hammering this match, so there aren't many fighters available to actually give this 262 cover, so he is running back towards his airfield. He's looking for flat coverage, and as you can see, I've just started hitting 760, and I'm slowly beginning to wind him back in. I don't think this 262 was fully upgraded. He should have been able to run for a lot longer than he was. But the rate of closing is very small, so you can see if both planes are upgraded fully exactly how small the rate of closing would be coming from the same base energy level between these two aircraft. as I'm hitting 800 kilometers an hour, and now I'm really starting to wind him back in. This is the point that even fully upgraded I would begin catching him, down to 600 meters. Now the 262 is still slightly more maneuverable, so I want to make sure I've got him right in my gun convergence when I fire the shot. He goes vertical, does the right move, I get a good solid hit on him, but no critical. He tries to turn over, I pop the air brakes, I don't let him get in behind me. One solid hit from that 50mm and my game is over. Fold up the air brakes, nose down, he's right in front of me, just got to line up the shot. I am running fairly slow at the moment, so I'm yawing around a little bit, just got to line up carefully, there it is, pull the trigger, and 262 is down. Second kill of the match. Now the 262 pilot there actually didn't do anything wrong. He was doing all the right moves at the right times. The problem is the 262 is an aircraft that does require a little bit of support from its own team, especially the U4 model. However, there was not really any support to be had, and that led to his demise. So, spot an Arado 234. It's just returned from its base, reloading on ordnance, and the first thing it did when it spotted me is dropped its bombs and turned in. Now it's a bloody good thing these things don't have 20mm cannons at the moment, otherwise this guy would have torn me a new one. Exceptional pilot, he's looped the plane around, he's sitting on my ass, and he's going to try and do exactly what every single Arado pilot in the game does in this situation. He's going for a ram. Now I'm not about to let that happen, so nose down, start getting some airspeed, and then go to level. Begin opening the distance so I can afford to turn around and take a shot at him. Now, unfortunately, the direction I chose to travel was straight into the enemy base's AAA cover, which probably wasn't the smartest move I could have done. Quickly compliment the 234 and his piloting skills. I mean, there's no chance he's going to survive this encounter, but that was still a bloody nice move that he pulled off before. It was a joy to actually see pilots that know how to get on your ass and know how to do it well. Things like this make me really excited to see how the new armed German jet bomber that Gaijin have mentioned in their upcoming planes is going to perform in these matches. It may be quite surprising exactly how dangerous those things become, if they have anywhere near the manoeuvrability of the Arado. But as I said, this fight was only ever going to end one way. The Arado 234 has just been engaged by a Bearcat and a Premium Tempest, and I've easily opened the gap. So now it's being approached by me and two cannon-armed fighters, 1.3 kilometers out, and he gets lit up and smoked. I try and intercept, but he cuts in underneath, which was, again, a nice move to avoid my guns. Boom out the other end. I don't want to turn slow while I've got AAA on me. Get a bit of distance and a bit of speed before I bring it around. Tempest and F-8F are all over him, however. It's only a matter of time before he gets lit up. He's still managing to avoid them just though, a lot of shots going in. Bring the nose around and quickly zoom in to have a little bit of a look, and no, he's on fire, he's out. So just bank away, no point in hanging around this area any longer. Now the enemy team only has a couple of aircraft remaining. Now there is an engagement happening in about the midsection of the map. However, by the time I get there, the remaining two of the remaining three aircraft have been eliminated, so all that was left is to find the last one. So 5 or 6 minutes of flying around looking for this last aircraft, and we couldn't find it. It was about this point that the fighters that only took minimum fuel loads began returning to base. And sure enough, there it was, a Bf-109 circling our airfield waiting for people returning on low fuel or out of ammo. Now I was searching for bombers above the clouds, so thankfully he never saw me coming, which gives me a really good dive angle and a really good position to get a lot of speed up, passing 900 kilometers an hour, continuing to accelerate, just about to hit maximum speed. He spots me last minute, turns hard, not quite able to get the guns around even with a pop of the air brakes. Use that energy, go back into the vertical. I'm going to hold this energy over the top of him and eliminate this guy. He's already taken down one of the planes that were coming back for land, and a lot of the props are running at under 5 minutes fuel at the moment. Incidentally, this is why I never run minimal fuel loads on any aircraft in RB. Why it does add a little bit of weight to your plane and reduces overall performance. It prevents this situation from ever happening. Now he's doing the right thing at the moment. He's sitting directly underneath me, and every time I dive in he tries to turn underneath my dive path. So I have to steepen the angle to the point where it's unlikely I'll be able to pull out of the dive in order to get guns on him. That's incredibly risky for me to be able to do, and I won't pull it off, which is why I've had to abort passes on him twice so far. Diving back in, 1.8. Just watch what he's doing. He's going to bank right. Turns in hard, continuing his turn. He's trying to pull in underneath me. I do get a lead on him this time, however I aim poorly. outturns me, which he will do. At this altitude, at slower speeds, he'll easily outturn me in the 109. However, the first of the very thirsty prop fighters have arrived, and they really want to put down at the moment. They're on vapors, so this 109 is about to get hit by multiple aircraft at once. Bearcat is starting to engage. 109 turns, outturns the Bearcat, is cutting in, Bearcat is moving to pursue, and I've got a perfect angle of dive. Bearcat's had to break off, pop the air brakes just to slow me down, so I've got more time to pull out of this dive, take the lead, but I don't give it quite enough lead again. Fold the air brakes back up, break the distance. So these sharp angle dives, he's just turning enough to throw off my guns every single time. So I'm going to try and come at him from a flatter angle this time. Rather than the long sharp dive, I'm going to come down to his level, just at a higher speed. This puts me at an easier angle for him to be able to attack, but at exactly the same time, it reduces his ability to be able to turn away from me. And then to top it off, he goes for altitude as well, presents me with a nice silhouette. Take the shot. Good solid hits right across the tail. Not enough to put him down, however. Now I am being careful on my MG rounds at the moment because I've only got 117 rounds left. So I've got to be really sparing on what I've got at the moment to finish him off. Line back up. Oh, not quite. Another hit. And I'm down to 1 round remaining. Now this situation I find myself in was entirely my fault. I was a little heavy on the trigger the whole way through this match, and now I run into a situation where I've got plenty of fuel remaining, but I have an enemy sitting basically on the runway, so I can't put down for more ammo. And I've got a bunch of prop fighters that are just about out of fuel. So this could very rapidly turn around in the other direction. Thankfully, while I didn't get a critical hit on him, I think I actually did some fairly severe tail damage because of what's about to happen. His overall manoeuvring has severely dropped, as you can see, being engaged by the Tempest and the F-8F, and he's just lost control, goes into the ground, and the kill was awarded to me. I have a funny feeling I'd actually done crippling rudder damage and elevator damage, but not an actual critical strike there, and that's what took him out in the end. So, second place for the team with 3 kills, Shadow Strike Streak 2, Ground Forces Rescuer, Professional, Windstreak X3, Final Blow, Terror of the Sky and Bulletproof, 58,265 Silver Lions, and managed to flip in with 8,526 modification research points. And I'm just working on the G-Suit now. It's probably the last performance upgrade that I haven't got on this plane. So, all in all, a pretty good match. Now, the F-84 Thunderjet does have a bit of a reputation these days of still being a bit of a shit fighter, mainly because of how its performance level when it first entered the game. For anybody who's avoiding flying the F-84 at the moment, in its current state, because of this old stigma that it has attached to it, ignore it. It no longer applies. This is actually a very good, very competitive aircraft now. As I said, it is a little low on the performance side when you first get it, but as you get the upgrades to it, this thing becomes a bit of a beast, and I actually really love flying it. It's just great fun to get into. It turns well, it climbs well, it's fast, its energy retention is pretty good. It's not quite up to the standard of some of the other jets, specifically looking at the 262 and the Meteor, but overall it's quite excellent, and the firepower on it is good, if you're not quite as heavy on the trigger as I was that round. The other side of the coin is it's not an absolute seal clubber like the F-80C was at 6.7. This plane has some weaknesses. It is slower in some areas, or it is a vastly slower aircraft than the F-80C is. It can be caught by props if you do the wrong thing in it, or if you're facing a good prop fighter. That G10 pilot at the end was probably good enough that he could have given this thing a run for its money after I encountered him, if he had energy on his side, but as when I dove out of the clouds he was only at about 50 feet off the ground, he never really had much of a chance to fight back, but he was definitely a good enough pilot that he could have made it difficult for me if we hit one another at equal altitude at, say, 10,000 feet. So anyways, if you've been holding back on this aircraft because you're not sure if it's worth actually flying, give it another crack. It's definitely worth your time now. Anyways, ladies and gents, click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more, fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.